Aló, buenas noches. Hay que esperar a que se conecten personas. Ay, Dios, qué despeinada. Buenas, buenas. ¿Cómo están? Hola, Sofía. ¿Qué onda? La primera. Mm, Álvaro Aguirre, mi amiguísimo. ¿Listos? Jordan Rudess se conectó, súper bien. Ah, ya me mandó la solicitud. Perfecto. Ok. Ya, oye, pues están conectando súper rápido. Buenas noches, amigos. ¿Cómo están? ¡Ah! Estoy súper emocionada porque ya vamos a tener la entrevista con Jordan Rudess. Estoy súper emocionada. Y porque bueno, es un momento histórico para mí, porque yo siempre he sido como súper fan de Dream Theater. Entonces, solamente les voy a hacer una pequeña introducción. La entrevista obviamente pues tiene que ser en inglés. Las preguntas, le voy a preguntar ahorita a Jordan si me da chance de que las traduzca a español, porque las voy a preguntar primero en inglés y luego en español. Y si por algún motivo se cae el en vivo, porque pues qué sé yo, de repente Instagram se pone medio rarito, pues lo reiniciamos, ¿verdad? No hay problema. Así que, pues bueno, chicos, vamos a entrevistar a Jordan Rudess. Para quienes no sepan, él es el tecladista de Dream Theater y que de hecho hace poco sacaron una canción, un nuevo single que se llama The Alien, que está buenísima. Si no la han escuchado, vayan a escuchar. Así que, pues, vamos a por esto. No sé cuánto va a durar la entrevista, pero pues vamos a ver cómo se da todo aquí. Enviar solicitud. A ver. Hello.
Hello, hello.
Hello, how are you? How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. How are you doing tonight?
Oh, I'm very excited, very kind of nervous because this is the first time doing this.
Uh,
So,
oh, it's really
but
fun. That's awesome.
yeah, I want to say thank you first of all that you accepted my invitation because this is the first time that I'm talking here with you, and it's an honor to me because I grew up listening to your music when I was a teenager,
Uh,
and that's enough. I'm sorry, that's enough. I'm from Monterrey, Mexico, and Dream Theater came to Monterrey a few years ago. But I was very young, and I didn't have the opportunity to see you guys. But thanks again for being here. It's an honor. It's a truly an honor.
thank you so much. Well, it's nice to be here with you.
Thanks again, Jordan.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
that if it's okay for you, can I translate the questions in Spanish?
Sure.
English and then in Spanish for my people.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
okay, great.
No problem.
Well, thanks. So
Of course.
let's start with the
Okay,
little intro.
let's
Okay, great.
go.
Okay, the first question is, how did you learn music composition? How to improvise? ¿Cómo aprendiste a componer y cómo improvisar?
Well, my background, much like yours, is in classical music. I went
Yeah.
to a school called the Juilliard School in New York City when I was very young. I started there when I was 9 years old, and I stayed there until I was 19, and then I left. Um, it was a very, very strict classical upbringing. They really didn't like me to improvise or anything like that. They told
Oh,
me not really not to do it.
oh well.
But at the same time, I was lucky enough to have a couple of teachers that were very inspiring and very open, and they would play me different kinds of music and encourage my creativity and things outside of the strict kind of classical space. So one of the teachers in particular was really great because he would turn me on to different kinds of music that had like maybe different kinds of harmony or different kinds of sounds. And then I got the opportunity to kind of investigate that or write something using those kind of chords. And that was really wonderful. And to this day, I encourage students of composition and improvisation to, when you hear something that you really like, when you hear a kind of a chord or pattern, try writing something with it. And then there's so much information you can get from that. So that was really great.
Wow, that's amazing. But did you like classical music, or you always prefer more like to improvise, or what?
I like it. I like it all. Yeah, I love classical music. I love playing Bach. I love playing Chopin. Although I don't play a lot of that today, I do more and more. Um,
Okay,
so I mix it up.
okay, that's
Yeah,
awesome. Well,
yeah,
thanks.
sure.
The next, do you feel your compositions are better now compared to your earlier days? Uh, ¿Crees que tus composiciones ahora son mejores comparados con las primeras composiciones?
That's an interesting question. I mean, we like to think that we learn a lot as time goes by. Um, so in a sense, I would say, yeah, I hope that it's better
Mhm,
because I'm somebody who tries to learn from my past or my mistakes, you know.
mhm.
So, but there's a possibility that, I don't know, music is such a funny thing. It's all so like spiritual and emotional and all those kind of things that it's hard to be really like defined in the way that you think about it or look at it. So, I mean,
Mhm.
maybe when I was younger, some of that young energy came out, and that was probably, pretty cool. And now there's a different kind of energy that's happening, maybe a little more mature.
Like you think that you develop more your skills in compositions and using different elements, or how, what, why do you think that it's better now?
Yeah.
Like,
Well, what's better is that the longer I spend on focusing on music and developing my skills, the more tools I have at my disposal. In other words, like, my ears are very wide open for all different kinds of music, and I work with a lot of really interesting musicians from all over the world. So, for instance, the last couple of years, I have been really exposed to like Indian music mostly because a lot of the people who play my application GeoShred are
sure.
making all this amazing Carnatic Indian music. So I've had a chance to not only listen to their music, but also interact and do some projects with them. So feeding my mind and my soul this sonic information helps me to grow. And there's more to me, like just musically, than ever before because of all the things I'm exposed to and all the things that I bring into my style.
Wow, that's amazing. Wow, yeah, here Shred, the application is awesome. It's great. I'm going
Oh,
to make
thanks.
commercial here in Spanish for my people. For
Awesome.
the Jordan tiene una aplicación que se llama Shred para composición. Es muy buena, se las recomiendo muchísimo. Yo también estoy tratando de entenderla, pero es muy, muy, muy buena aplicación. Se los recomiendo, búsquenla en su tienda de aplicaciones que ustedes usen. Yeah, right now I'm getting into the app.
Are you?
I little bit. I want to
Hmm.
introduce like this app with the new music of my group with Espejo Rotos, because I think that is a great tool for composition. Yeah.
Awesome. I'm so glad you're enjoying it.
Thanks again. Thanks. Thanks.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's awesome.
let's go to the next question.
Okay.
Uh, have you ever felt your progress hit a roadblock? How did you overcome it? ¿Alguna vez has sentido que tu progreso se estancó y cómo saliste de eso?
Hmm. I think that as a creative person or as creative people, we go through cycles. And even that could happen within a day, where all of a sudden you don't feel very creative or you're having a hard time like coming up with something. Like if you're trying to write a piece of music, maybe you could be at the piano and just nothing could come out. And then,
Mhm.
maybe take a walk or something like that, and then come back, and an hour later, it could happen. I remember actually while I'm talking about this, I was in the studio with John Petrucci, and we were writing an album called The Astonishing. And it was just he and I in the studio writing all kinds of music. And we came upon this one section where I really wanted to reharmonize one of the themes. And I sat there and I was like, nothing was happening. It was just, I couldn't think of anything like what to do. So I said, you know what, John? I said, I can't do this. I said, I got to go out for a walk.
Okay.
So I left the building and I started to walk. And as soon as I got outside and left the keyboard, all of a sudden it flashed in my mind what it should be. And I was like, oh my God, all I really had to do is get up and get away from it.
Yeah.
Because when you're trying to force an idea, that's often when it doesn't happen. But when you're just letting something flow, then it does happen. Because again, it's music and it's really hard to understand. Like another example is like if this might sound a little strange, but if I'm like not feeling very well, or like in the past, I can remember even having like a flu or something like that, like a little fever, and I'll sit down at the piano, and it can be a very creative space because it's like an alternate reality, which means that you're not necessarily thinking about all the things that come into your mind to block the creative spirit, and you just can kind of like tap into something. So
Wow.
that's the kind of thing I've noticed. So roadblocks, I mean, they'll happen, but if I'm smart, I just kind of like allow myself to let go a little bit or do something different or get up and, change my headspace. Then things go well.
Okay. That's amazing because I always have like this question in people that compose their music, their own music, because I'm not still getting used to compose right now, but
Yeah.
I know that there's gonna to be in my life that I'm going to be like blocked,
Yeah.
So it's a
You just have to not get too involved in that feeling. Just, okay, there's a little block, but now I'm going to go do something else. I'll go, you know, pick some flowers or something like that and change my mind and just kind of like, then that would really, really help.
okay. Thanks for the advice. Thank you very much.
Okay, you got it.
Okay, so this is nice. If you weren't a musician, what would you have liked to be? Si no hubiera sido músico, ¿qué te hubiera gustado ser?
Well, if I wasn't a musician, I live my life as a creative person, so there's
Mm,
not much else that I like to do or that I'm really good at. So it would have to be something in the creative domain. Like a lot of times when I'm not making music, even these days, you might have even have seen some of the stuff I do, but I'm working on like art things. I'm doing animations, I'm working with interesting colors and pictures and just being creative and videos. And I just love the visual domain as well. And I really like to put the world of music and visual together. And that's
okay.
partly why I created my company, which is called Wisdom Music, which put out
Mm,
GeoShred. So I could experiment with kind of like, how do you combine an interface that you can make music, you can touch it, and at the same time you're creating some kind of visual experience. Matter of fact, about 12 years ago or something like that, the first app that I came out with was called MorphWiz. And it was a really cool
mhm.
app, and it got a lot of recognition. And matter of fact, it helped me to keep on doing what I do because it was pretty popular. But what would happen is you put your finger down on the screen, and then when you put your finger down on the screen, you'd see a shape. And then as you move your finger and the shape was a certain color, the shape would morph to another shape. So everything, the music and the visuals were happening in coordination.
Yeah, that's something that Hirschred like is very
Mm,
visual. They have like colors and the touch, and I can feel like it's very natural to me to use it, and I can
awesome.
notice that. Yeah,
Oh,
well,
good,
that's
good.
great. Could be maybe but something creative, even if it's not
Definitely.
music,
Like
it
I
can
would be
be.
I would be a visual artist, graphic
Oh,
designer or something,
so cool, great.
for
Okay,
sure.
thanks.
Sure.
Question, and let me read it. Have you ever experienced stage fright? And if you have, ¿alguna vez has experimentado pánico escénico? Y si te ha pasado, ¿todavía lo experimentas?
Um, I don't usually have stage fright, but that doesn't mean that I don't get it. The times when I don't have stage fright are when I'm playing like night after night. Like even if it's big places or whatever with Dream Theater, sometimes it's almost sad, but sometimes I don't even notice like the room that we're playing in because every night you're walking on stage and I walk over to my keyboards and I just play. It's my job. And then and I'll look out, at the audience and go, oh my God, wow, this place is cool. Like it's a different kind of thing. But on the other side of that is like when I'm playing something like my solo piano concerts, and I don't do it all the time, and the audience is very intimate. And it's like, that feeling when like, even if one person's like watching you play, like really closely, and I don't know, like that kind of thing could make me nervous, right? Or you're doing like a master class for your fellow students or something, and you know, that definitely can make you a little tight. So what
Yeah.
I do to combat that is when I practice, I try to not only practice the notes and the technique of the keyboard technique of what I'm doing, but I try to practice how I want to feel. Like, so if I'm playing a
Okay.
passage, like let's say I'm playing a Chopin thing and the left hand is doing something that's very fluid and big stretch, I'll try to like get in the mental space and physical space that I want to be in and remember that and lock that in. So when I'm in front of people, I more easily can get back to that space. That's the thing. Or if I'm doing like a rock thing, like a Dream Theater thing, and I know it's like an intense lead or something like that, but it's hard, but it's intense. I'll practice it and I'll like, turn up the volume and kind of like maybe even turn on the video camera to put a little more pressure on myself. But I'll practice like just doing it and relaxing. So I'm not only
Okay.
practicing the actual notes, I'm practicing the emotion and the
Feeling.
feeling inside my body and my mind that I want to get back to. And that I feel is really key to, to getting to the next level of figuring all that out.
Yeah, and that makes me think in another question, like,
Sure.
how many not do you practice? How many hours do you practice before a concert, or how do
Yeah.
you take?
Yeah. So when I was younger and I was playing, classical music concerts, recitals, and all that kind of stuff, then I was practicing on a real schedule. Like then I'd practice 3 or 4 hours a day, maybe even 5 hours a day if it was really close to the concert. But as I got older,
Mhm.
like I would do it in a different way. First of all, I learned to practice better so I can, just do more in less time. An example of that being, I'm just practicing a little bit. I have some shows in the West Coast coming up, and I have to refresh, get my head around the music again that I play. So I'll focus like on the hard parts first. I'll just go right to the part that's troublesome because like like I'm sure you know like when you play a certain piece, like which are the parts that are always a little challenging. So I just jump right to it. I just go right to that and I practice, I get that done. It's a similar kind of a thing like when I'm practicing technique. In the
Mhm.
old days when I was younger, I would practice, just general, just everything and kind of all the fingers the same way, or run through the Hanen or Czerny or whatever it was. Or but now I kind of will almost make up my own. I'm always like um, making up my own exercises, and if I'm playing somebody else's, I'll be creative with it, and I'll spend more time on the fingers that are weaker because I know that, your
Nice.
pinky or your fourth finger is not the same as your thumb or your second finger. So it means that you need to spend more time on it. So I try to balance it out so my technique, can be as even as possible, even though, we're limited by being human beings and our fingers are what they are. But you can still, do things to make your fourth and fifth finger as strong as possible. So I'll just do
Wow.
that. I just go right for it.
Yeah. Or in the day of the concert, what is your routine? Like, what do you do first? You're going to play.
So my routine, it depends what kind of concert it is. Like when I'm doing my solo shows, I try to make sure that I have at least 30 minutes when nobody's going to come in and bother me. I can just like lately I've been like putting on like just some meditation kind of like music or something just to, I'll close the door so I try not to hear, the crowd or anything like that. And I try to get as calm as possible because I don't want to have my nerves be like rattled by anything. So I'll do some stretching, I'll listen to something really relaxing, I'll soak my hands in like hot water just because I find it's really relaxing for my hands. Even more, I'll do that even before I'll sit there and like practice. Because if my hands are cold from nerves, it doesn't matter. I could be sitting there all day going like this, and if they're cold, they're cold and they won't work. But if I put my hands in like hot water and leave them there for a while and relax and chill out, then that's the best. And if I stretch a little on top of that, it really helps. And I learned a lot about that because it was like forced on me a little bit in the sense that I was doing these really big shows, like big festivals with Dream Theater, where there'd be like 50,000 people in the audience. And you walk on a stage and there's 50,000 people that react to you, and it like jolts your nervous system, and it's intense. And so you don't want, and it could mess up your playing because think about it, it's serious. So I learned that I really needed to do things so when I had the power of the audience that hit me and hit my nervous system, it wouldn't take me out of the zone where I could just do a proper performance. So by really preparing, I could walk on stage and be excited, but
Yeah.
still loose, still fluid, and just play. And
And it's,
it's not perfect, it's not, I'm a human
yeah.
being. It's not perfect, but these are the kind of things that I think about and the kind of things I do as much as possible. Sometimes I've been in venues like with Dream Theater or whatever, where the conditions are not so great. Maybe it's cold backstage, or it's really loud or anything like that. So you do what you can, but ideally some quiet time, some meditation, some relaxing and all that kind of stuff is really important to me.
Wow. Yeah, I remember when I hold hands in my recitals it
Right?
was
It's terrible. It happens to
hard
me. Yeah.
because you're trying. Yeah,
Yeah,
tell me.
you're trying to be your best self, right? And then your hands are cold and you're thinking, wow, this is like not even close to what I can usually do. But people don't know it. It's frustrating. The human being thing is very frustrating. That's why it's so important to, as pianists, as keyboardists, not only to practice the piano, but to
Mhm.
practice all the things that we have to do as people so we can be settled and relaxed and loose and not let all those factors interfere with
Yeah.
what we're trying to do. That's the lifelong goal. That's what it's all about for me. And especially the other part of it is because I like to improvise and I like to just compose music and just let it flow. And if I'm not flowing, then it's not going to work. So,
Mhm.
it's really important. Yeah.
Oh, well, that's well. Even Jordan Rudess uh, struggles with the cold hands.
Sure. Yeah, it'll happen.
Well, thanks with for sharing this experience. I think that is very important for us because um, most musicians don't talk about their struggles, their stage fright,
Right.
and
Right.
they struggle a lot in silence because I have friends that they are
Hmm.
in the
Yeah.
classic. Uh, Even
Sure.
I that stage fright, but yeah, it is very very important to work on your emotions and be prepared for
Hmm.
everything and enjoy it.
Right. Right.
I think that's very
Absolutely.
important.
Yeah. I mean, the
Well,
young musicians just think that I have to practice, I've got to do scales, I got to play this piece a million times. And that's only a part of the answer. It's a small part. You have to also work on who you are as a person and, just being grounded, settled and calm and being able to learn how to relax. I mean, it sounds almost silly, but it means everything.
okay. Well, thanks for the advice, Jordan.
Sure.
Let's jump into another
Sure.
question. So, um, okay, this is interesting. Um, what advice do you have for pianists who are just getting into improvisation and composition, such as myself? Uh,
I don't know if you can hear the piano. Tell me if you can hear it. Wait, I'll put this down because I'm wearing headphones, so I'm not sure. Yeah?
yes.
So, so the advice that I have to give is one thing to really understand and to learn when you're trying to improvise is to be able to play all the different chords and all the different inversions very quickly. So like if I say, okay, I'm on a C chord, I'm going to say, okay, go to an F. What's the closest position? So your hand can go there immediately. Okay, B flat, like E flat, A flat, D flat. So one can do that even just by calling out chords. And the reason that's so important is, let's say I have a melody, like I'll make up a melody for you right now, and the melody is going to be so okay, so what I'm doing, I made up the melody and I'm just naturally playing underneath it. But as I play, I want the melody to be the top voice, but I want to fill it in. So if I go like, so, and the only reason that I can do that is because I can think of the chords. A part of it's ear training, right? Or like learning tools, like what a different chord progressions sound like. But a part of it is being able to quickly put your hand on like the chord that's under the melody in the position that you're in. So if I play like, and I want to go C, and then means with one inversion, and then, right? So that really, really helps. So it's probably a good idea for somebody who wants to learn to improvise is to really make sure you can put your hand on chords very, very quickly in all the different positions.
Wow. I have a lot of homework to do for that. Thanks for the advice, Jordan.
Sure.
I think that, I mean, you're an inspiration to me for uh, develop my skills on improvisation, because as a classical musician, we don't have like that very, we don't work on improvisation actually. We're more to,
Of course.
you know,
Yeah.
composition.
If it, yeah. If it wasn't for my one teacher at Juilliard who encouraged me to do that, it would be the same because they didn't, you know, that wasn't part of the education.
Yeah, right. Well, thanks again. This
Sure.
was amazing. I'm always impressed by the way you play.
Oh, thank you.
So let's go to the other question. Another question. I think
Sure.
that, oh my God, I thought that there was like there wasn't enough questions, but now I think that there are too much questions. So
Oh,
sorry.
no problem.
Okay, so how is the composition progress within Dream Theater team? ¿Cómo es el proceso de composición adentro del equipo de Dream Theater?
It's an interesting process. When I joined Dream Theater so many years ago, um, it was a request from the other guys. They said, look, we don't really write music away from the band. We write it when we're together. So it's like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
okay. Because I generally like to write music sitting quietly, like at the keyboard or the piano. But I understood, you know, what they were saying. They like to kind of be together while it's all happening. So regardless, of course, I had a lot of ideas that I brought in and, you know, whatever. But but to this day, there's a lot of creation that happens when we're in the room together. And it's a very unusual environment because it's kind of hard to compose when it's, let's say, loud or noisy, or like when somebody's drumming on something. So, but the way it works is that somebody will have a seed, like some kind of an idea, and then we'll try it and maybe we like it. And if it starts to work, then while we're playing that, then like either myself or like John Bertrucci will begin to think about what could come next. So, literally we'll be playing some progression and then I'll think, oh my God, it'd be so cool if we went into this afterwards. So sometimes I'll like stop playing while they're working on the part they're working on, and I'll like sit with music paper and a pencil and I'll write out what I'm thinking for the next part while they're working on the other part, which is hard because the next part might be totally different chords or something like that. So it takes a certain kind of a, I don't know, craziness. But that idea of like one section inspiring the next section is very much the way that we work. Or like, like John Petrucci, the guitarist, will play something on the guitar. He might go, and I'll go, okay, how about we go? And then he goes, oh yeah, that's great. And then he'll fill in the next line and I'll fill in the next one. The next thing you know, we got some crazy, unison thing that we do together. So, and sometimes it happens very fast and it even gets funny because, he'll be, oh my God, I got this idea. It's crazy. So, and other times we'll be searching, we'll take some time and, be looking for just the right chords and just, everybody's very patient in Dream Theater. So if we're at a point where, we're playing chords, it could be very much like, I'm putting this down again for a second, where we got like, we play this chord. And then, no, and I'll be go, no, so it depends. It's fun. It's funny for me because as an improviser, I could sit and just play all day, and some of it'll be probably pretty nice. But when you're composing, you want to take the time. A lot of times, you want to really like construct things. So for me, it's like, well, I could just play it and it'd be nice. So why am I stopping to even think about it? I'll just play. But at the same time, at the same time, the not the quality, but the nature of what comes out when you sit there and actually compose it is a little bit different. Although the compositions kind of come out of improvisation a lot of times. So it's that balance.
Wow. And I heard your new single, The Alien. It's amazing, the song.
Oh, good.
And
I'm glad you like it.
How much time did it take to compose that song, for example?
Generally a song like that, it's not that, well, that one's about 8 or 9 minutes, I forget. Probably like 2 or 3 days, like intense days working. Dream Theater could write a song like, in 2 days. If it's maybe 9 or 10 minutes, generally it'll take us a few days, maybe 3, maybe stretch it out to 4. We have a song on the new album. It's like an epic track. It's like 20 minutes. It's the title track of the album. It's called A View from the Top of the World. And that took, a 20-minute song. That was like a solid week, I think, of just like writing and just going into the studio, working every day, constructing the parts and doing all the stuff. And, but we work pretty quickly. One of the things that helps us to work quickly and that helps me as a composer is that I'm willing to let go of stuff. Like I'm willing to say, you know what, that's good. I like that. Instead of like a lot of people who write music, they would like sit at a piano or something like that, and they might play, no, I don't like that. And they'll sit all day, no, and just like question themselves and be like, oh, I don't know, it's not good enough. But a lot of times, if I sit there and I go, I'll be like, I like that. It's good. Because, in a way, part of it, I guess, is that for me, music it feels a little bit like communication, like talking. Like you're not always going to go back and adjust every word you say. So like when I played that little phrase, what's the difference between what I'm doing now and when I put my hands down on the keys? It's musical vocabulary, and it's just coming out, and I'm going with it. If I was giving a speech, well, then maybe you stop and, think about it really carefully. And therefore, if you're doing a composition, maybe you stop and refine a little bit. So it's that interesting balance, you know.
Yeah, I think that you're a great team because you are like there are too many ideas in the moment, and
It's a
you
lot of
choose the
ideas.
best. Yeah,
It's a
it's
lot of
amazing.
ideas. It's
I can.
an interesting group.
Yeah, I really
Yeah.
like dream theater
Wow. Oh, cool.
music. Amazing. It's just amazing.
Thanks.
Okay,
Awesome.
let's go. I think that we have like a few more questions to
Okay.
finish this interview. Okay, I think that this is interesting because I have like a lot of questions with this. Um,
Okay.
what do you think of mainstream music as a consumer product? ¿Qué opinas de la música popular como un producto de consumo?
Mm. Mainstream music. Wow. Some of it, I think mainstream music is really important because although there's certainly a lot of like commercial music that I think is really garbage, I think that there's a certain focus that goes into the production that is something that everybody can learn from. Like, um, I was just listening to, do you know the artist Billie Eilish,
Yeah,
who's
yeah,
pretty commercial, but her productions are amazing, like
yeah,
really, really great. There's something about the sound. I mean, it's almost like when she sings, she can basically be whispering. Like you feel it's so personal, it's so close. And the reason that is because technology has kind of allowed the recording process to capture her that clearly. It's almost like you can hear it think, you know, in the recording, which is crazy. So,
yeah,
you know, there's certain commercial music that I'll pay attention to because there's value in it. Then there's the other side where, you know, you're listening to maybe like a drum machine or something like that, which you feel like there's no like humanity to it. Like I like the technology where the technology is advancing the expression and the sensitivity of the artist rather than technology which cuts, you know, is very cold and clinical. An example of that, again, being like you turn on a sequencer and it just kind of does what it does in perfect time, and it's not much emotion. Sequencers can be cool and a great sound. However, it depends how you're using them. So again, technology, you know, needs to be pushing forward the human experience rather than just like a robot for a robot's sake. You know, that doesn't make any sense. So I value commercial music to a point if they're thinking along those lines to allow performers to be, you know, much more personal to us and make us feel, you know, emotions. And that can happen in a pop song. You know, it does fairly often. I mean, personally, I like music that has more, you know, my personal taste is I generally like music that has more interesting harmony and more interesting rhythm just because it excites me more. I mean, you know,
yeah.
because I'm a musician and I want to hear things in 13/8, whatever, and you know, I just like that. But I also like mellow things, as you know, just really gentle, very mellow things. So,
Oh, very interesting. And that makes me think in this question, do you feel that you have stayed true to your artistic and creative process regardless of the sales? ¿Crees que te has mantenido fiel a tu música, y tu creatividad sin importar las ventas?
yeah, I feel very much that I've been able to do that. I mean, I play all different kinds of music. And again, I like some commercial music,
Mhm.
but generally I do music because I love it. It, the way it makes me feel, the way that I can share it with other people and allow them to kind of also join me with some kind of a resonance or a feeling. And that really doesn't have much to do with commerciality at all. I mean, yeah, I make my living doing music, and it's lucky that I can put food on the table because I really do just make music for the passion of it. Like I did, you know, when the whole lockdown happened, I was doing like uh, live streams on Facebook every day, like for just for free, because I just wanted to share music. I just wanted to play. And then finally, I thought, you know what? I'm sending the wrong message to people because it's not good to tell people that music is free because there's a lot of artists out there that really need to make a living doing their music and it shouldn't be free. So I actually told my audience, I said, you know what? I'm going to come to an end doing it this way, and I'm starting a Patreon because with Patreon, it
Mm.
allows me to share and do all the things I love to do, but it also allows people to give back. So a little more than a year ago, I started the Patreon, and I do a lot of streaming, a lot of sharing, a lot of education, but people can be part of my inner circle and they can, you know, give back. And it's not free,
Mhm.
which makes sense.
Yeah, sure. Because of course we need to live, to
Right.
eat,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. It's important.
Yeah, me too. Like, I'm trying to get used to all these tools. Of course, I'm a very young musician and I'm still learning. But yeah, I think that it's important to value the work of the musicians because they do a lot of work
Yeah,
actually.
yeah, and it's good for us to put that message out there as social media people, and it's really it's definitely important.
Perfect. Thanks for your sharing your experience. And I'm going to close this to end this interview with one last question. And this is the question. What is your most treasured memory from your earlier days with Dream Theater? What comes to mind and hits hard with that nostalgia factor? ¿Cuál es tu momento más días cuando estabas en Dream Theater a los inicios del grupo?
So, in the early days of Dream Theater, um, there are some memories that I have that were really, really strong. And one of them is playing a hometown show in New York City. I think it was my first show in New York City, and we were playing music from scenes from a memory. And at some point in the night, I had my first keyboard solo, right?
Mhm.
And I remember it because there was just so much support from the audience. It was so awesome. And people just started like shouting my name out, Jordan, Jordan, Jordan. And I was like really hit with this big emotion. It was so intense, because hometown shows are extra like special anyway. There's always a lot of energy. There's always a lot of nerves involved. But once you get over it and you start doing your thing, and then it can be a real high, a great experience. So that particular show, which is captured a bit on YouTube as well, is one of the most watched Jordan Rudess videos. It's me with really long hair playing it like a Kurzweil keyboard or something like that, playing doing my solo and running through all different styles on the piano, and that was really, really a great memory. Of course, there's other memories that stay with me as well from later in my career of things that happened that were not so good, but somehow those things stay with you too. Like I did a show. I'll tell you very quickly. I did a show in Mexico City, actually at the I don't know, the big Auditorium Nacional, I think it's called. And first of all, I was backstage, and there was like a little earthquake that happened right before we went
Oh,
on. So my nerves were already like, oh my God. Then I got on stage, and the first song, I was so shaken up. I made a mistake. Nobody really heard it too much because the band was loud playing. But I made a mistake, and I went, oh my God, what a crazy night. About 20 minutes into the show, I have this keyboard stand that tilts, the whole thing tilts so I can play like on an angle. And so when I play like a lead or something like that, I can tilt my keyboard stand so you can see me play, like the audience could see it. But so I tilted it to play my solo, and then I went to tilt it back, and it didn't go back. So I'm sitting there like this, like literally playing like this, and I was ready to go into a piano part, and I wanted to hit the button to make it go back, but it didn't return. So the whole show, and they couldn't fix it. So the whole show, this big Mexico City show for 10,000 people, I was playing leaning over the keyboard. And I kept thinking, am I going to be able to play the next part this way? Because it was awkward, you know, but I did. And when I finally got done with the show, I walked off and I was like this. I was like, I gotta straighten my body out. It was ridiculous.
wow.
But that's memorable too, but in a different way.
Well, I think that was like very uncomfortable and like challenging to play in that position.
Oh my God, it was really
All
challenging.
the front. Oh my God, no, no, no,
It's a
no.
funny memory then. It's all okay at this point. Just funny.
Well, and what are your next projects in
Well,
this
let's
year?
see. So now in a few days, I'm going to head out to the West Coast. to California and do some shows, some piano solo shows, which is going to be a lot of fun. And then I come home and then we start rehearsing for the Dream Theater tour. That's going to take quite a bit of time when that starts to roll. I think the first show is on October 25th. So, and then we'll be totally in that mode. And if I take a break, there'll probably be a break around February, March, and I'm thinking maybe booking some European shows as well.
Okay.
So I'm always busy, doing stuff. I have some new apps that I'm working on. I'm really excited about some very cool music apps. I just put out one that was actually a visual app. It's called Rhythm,
Okay.
like rhythm, but with a V. Wow. It responds to music. It just came out about a month ago. So you load in a music file to it, and then you can choose how you want the visuals to respond to the music. So that one came out. But there's some really fun music apps that are going to be coming out soon. So always something fun happening.
Yeah, you're always busy. Like you're
Always
doing
busy.
a lot of stuff and playing, and that's awesome. And I think that you enjoy a lot playing in people and sharing. I admire you a lot. You are inspiring to me to keep learning, and I want to say thanks again, because I am honestly very thankful, because this is an honor being here talking to you. Inspire a lot of people, and your music is just great. I love 6 Degrees of Inner Turbulence.
I like that one too. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
I really love that. And well, I best for your next projects, and of course that the pandemic is not like a problem anymore.
We hope, right? We really hope that we can tour and play music and see our friends and all the things we want to do. Yeah. Well, listen, thank you so much for having me on your channel. I really appreciate it. Nice to see you, and nice to be able to share some of these thoughts with you. And you play so beautifully, and so I enjoy hearing your music. So keep up the good work, and I'm sure we'll talk soon. And I want to hear you play GeoShred. I want to hear you play GeoShred soon.
I will. I promise I will.
Okay.
Thanks again, Jordan.
All right.
And we're talking the next time. Goodbye.
Absolutely.
Thanks again.
And thanks to everybody who tuned in as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.